Greetings, folks. I'm going to read through this. So, this is what it thinks. Your approach, Vaserlan? It's not off to a good start. Your approach to integrating Jungian cognitive functions with Kurz's temperaments into what you call the Jung-Kurzy individuation patterns is a framework. I don't know how sophisticated it is. That's for you to judge. Is a framework that refines and reconciles both systems. Let me outline your key points and clarify how your methodology works, particularly in contrast to the Enneagram, while addressing the historical context of Johannes Hermanus van der Hoop's contributions and sensory instincting. He called it instinct. I thought that's not clear enough, so there we go. The Jung-Kurzy individuation patterns. Your framework builds on Jung's original cognitive functions by refining their definitions through the lens of Kurz's temperament model, interaction styles, and socially intelligent roles. This approach validates Jung's foundational ideas while addressing areas where his descriptions were either overly narrow or lacked empirical grounding. Core premises of your approach. Kurz's temperaments as a foundation. Kurz's essential motivator patterns, that's Linda Bones' term, artisan, guardian, idealist, rational, provide a more tangible and empirically grounded framework for understanding personality than abstract cognitive functions alone. Keyword alone. These temperaments are rooted in observable patterns of what people trust, seek, and value, making them real in the sense that they reflect universal human behaviors. And these motivations are real. It's not as if when somebody says, oh, I seek knowledge, and I've never heard that before, or I seek success. They're not made up motivations, whereas functions can be made up. If you're trying to divine them, I'm looking at you, Socionics Model A. Interaction styles as a refinement tool. Interaction styles as a refinement tool. By incorporating interaction styles, directive versus informing, fast-paced, it's expressive versus reserved, you further refine how cognitive functions manifest across different personality types. Socially intelligent roles. Kurz's roles, tactical manipulation, which is highest in artisans usually, logistical safety, logistical safekeeping, guardians, diplomatic enabling, and strategic construction, not instruction, add another layer of specificity to how functions are used in real-world contexts. Functions as distillations of temperament. Well, for SE and SI. For outward extroverted functions, such as, I don't know which function is like FE, such as FE or SE, you emphasize their empirical nature, which aligns with observable external behaviors, or through interviews. For inward introverting functions, such as TRSI, you highlight their subjective quality, focusing on how they process internal information. So this is in line with Jung. Jung, the reason why Jung was so much into extrovert and introvert is within the context of his system, because the context of his system was to try to find the inferior system, the inferior function, because that was linked to neuroses in his system. This integration allows you to describe functions not as abstract theoretical constructs, but as patterns derived from the behaviors and motivations of specific groups. It's not quite this far, but it's it uses a yardstick of something which is more empirical. Let's see if it gets better in the explanation. Refining Jung through Kurzy. Your approach validates much of Jung's original framework while addressing areas where his descriptions were overly abstract or limited by his era's understanding. A key example is your treatment of introverted sensing and extroverted sensing. SI as essence of guardian. You argue that Van der Hoop effectively described SI as the essence of guardian long before Kurzy formalized the guardian temperament. Yeah, Kurzy was only 16 in 1937. Van der Hoop's example of the conservative farmer who cares for his land and his beasts in the same old way aligns perfectly with Kurz's description of guardians as valuing tradition, stability, and responsibility. This redefinition reconciles Jung's overly narrow view of SI. Now, I actually incorporate that as SI harmonizing. No, I don't. SI imaginative. SI harmonizing would be all the comfort stuff. Yeah. As Jeff says, guardians will tell you about their medical problems. Yeah, not quite. I mean, MBTI doesn't quite do it as memory, but the reason SI draws on memory because what worked is in the past, and the guardians go to what worked because what worked, there's safety in that. With a broad understanding of it as a sensory instinct tied to preservation and continuity. Yeah. SE is essence of artisan. Similarly, you align SE with the artisan temperament, emphasizing its focus on action, freedom, and adaptability. Now, I'm not the first person to do this. Linda Burns and Dario Nardi did this in the way they basically define an SE and SI from the artisan and guardian temperaments. And I won't show the slides for that because I just want to stick to these slides. Yeah. Similarly, you align SE with the artisan temperament, emphasizing its focus on action, freedom, and adaptability. Yeah. It's not just force. By examining SDPs and SFPs, and I have a theory that in socionics, the alpha functions get all of the nuance, and the gamma functions, the opposite ones, tend to be one thing. Oh, NI is just time. SE is just force. TE is just business logic. FI is just ethics of relations. You see what I mean? I'm much more narrow. Whereas if you compare the socionics view of SI, it gets a lot put into it. And same with NE. Yeah. And the other ones, but yeah. Right. Okay. By examining SDPs and SFPs within Kurz's framework, you highlight how SE manifests differently depending on interaction style. Yeah, that's the thing. More directive. The SDPs, directive artisans use SE tactically to solve immediate problems with precision. So they're more likely to use SE in a forceful way. SFP is more in a freedom way and a defensive way, as in defending their freedom. SFPs use SE expressly to engage dynamically with their environment. This refinement grounds SE in observable behaviors while maintaining its empirical nature. You introduce the concept of sensory instincting to describe how SI and SE represent distinct sensory instincts. Guardian instinct, a drive towards preservation, continuity, and responsibility for one's environment. Artisan instinct, a drive guardians don't like pollution. Artisan instinct, a drive towards action, freedom, and engagement with the present moment. Yes, in the here and now. So by using this descriptive approach, you get a much richer description of SE and SI. Otherwise, I mean, I'm big into the Jungian, like, empirical and subjective, but SE is more than just empirical sensing. It's more than just sensory acuity. It's more than just objective, i.e. impartial sensory acuity. And SI is more than just subjective sensor. By framing SI and SE as sensory instincts tied to... So basically, the features of SE and SI that we observe cannot be deduced from a principle. So it's best to use it descriptive, but we can recognize guardians and artisans by words and tools and the tactical intellect and what the essential motivator pattern is. In terms of the wants and needs. By framing SI and SE as sensory instincts tied to temperament, you provide a more practical and empirically grounded way to understand these functions. But again, this is coming from Burns and Nardi. Validating Jung through empirical patterns. Your approach also validates Jung's distinction between introverted, subjective, and empirical functions by examining how they manifest across Terzi temperaments. Right, TI across temperaments. STPs use TI tactically within the artisan framework to solve practical problems. NTPs use TI strategically within the rational framework to develop logical systems. Socionics Model A because you have the NTPs defining the functions, tends to think that it's this, and it's sort of logic of laws and all this kind of nonsense. And it's nonsense because you can get an EF type, which is supposed to have a really weak TI, yet you can have an EF type who's a maths teacher or in Mensa. So how does that compute? Yeah, it means the definition's wrong. This supports Jung's view that TI is subjective thinking while adding nuance based on temperament. Well, thank you. Right, SFJs. Tends to be a bit sycophantic to these large language models. FE across temperaments. SFJs use FE logistically within the Guardian framework to maintain social harmony on a practical level. Here's a sidebar. Guardian FI is going to be coming from the Guardian temperament, internal. So if you have a Guardian that grows up in a household that's all artisan and irresponsible, the FI of the Guardian, the internal feeling will go towards responsibility, the feelings which come from the temperament. But it will that FI will be a backseat driver to the FE. But at a certain point, that temperament's going to come through. NFJs use FE diplomatically within the idealist framework to inspire psychological growth in others. Now, so we're going like this, but it works out when you do the pairing. FE with SI, oh, pairs. FE with NI, oh, pairs. Oh, psychological growth, oh, growth, that's development. Intuition of time, intuition of development. And if we think of TE with NI, oh, development of projects. Oh, there's a theme. It's all mutually reinforcing. It's integrated. This supports Jung's view that FE is empirical feeling while refining his description through Kersey. Contrasting your approach with Enneagram. Yeah, my point is with Enneagram is that you're not using made-up deduction. You're not deducing from made-up premises, because all of the premises of Enneagram are real motivations. It's not as if someone can say, oh, this person is motivated to success. And no one's going to say, oh, that's ridiculous. You've just made that up. No, how do you know people are motivated by success? They're sort of empirically there in terms of interviewing people and knowing what they're driven by. Whereas if you're defining TI as logico-mathematical intelligence, where is that coming from? You see, you're saying this is that, but in terms of motivations, these are motivations that people know. It's not as if anyone's coming around saying, well, actually, it's not a drive to success, and then changing it. Or it's really much around the edges. So, for example, for Enneagram 4, I say what the drive is really, when I'm talking about being unique, it's just a little bit of tweaking. No, what they want to be is exceptional, not necessarily unique. Exceptional, because they get a little bit of snobbery in there when unhealthy. Contrasting your approach to Enneagram, while your approach to cognitive functions is descripted and grounded in Kersey's empirically validated patterns, your approach to Enneagram is deductive. Now, the benefit of this is then you're not describing Enneagram types based on the person who is fixated, because the person who is fixated also has a Jungian temperament. So, for example, if you describe Enneagram 6 fixated people, well, a lot of them are guardians, and so you're going to put guardian traits into the 6. Well, then if you get an idealist or a rational or an artisan who is Enneagram 6 fixated, those traits won't carry over. So what you need to do is deduce from the fixation. And as I said before, the fixation is real. It's not just made up. Whereas if you're doing a cognitive function from a print, like I said, Socionics just saying that, oh, TI is logic of laws. We just made it up because you don't understand. You don't understand Vertan Socionics. You don't understand it because it's your stupid internal-external dichotomy. Which, oh, here's something that's recently come up. If intuiting and feeling are internal, how do other people metabolize that information? Where is the information aspect? How can an FE person metabolize feeling in somebody else unless that information becomes external? What is being metabolized? Well, I would dare to say that the affect display is being metabolized. Oh, but that means it's external. Yes, there's an empirical side to feeling, just as there's an empirical side to NE. What's being metabolized with NE is the opportunity, the gap. Oh, I don't go in that. And in hindsight, it's there. It's always one of the things with the best ideas. One of the responses. Why didn't someone think of this before? Right. Again, approach to Enneagram is deductive because it starts on universal human motivations rather than observable traits. Now, key differences. Focus on core motivations. Let me see how I'm going with my progress. So I know how to. What about halfway? Nearly halfway through. Enneagram focuses on core motivations, e.g., love, success, security. It's not a case where someone can say those are misdefined. These aren't defined. Do you see what I mean? Because with functions, we have to say what TE is. We have to say what all of the functions are. We don't have to say what security is, or success, or love, or knowledge. You see what I mean? Whereas there are lots of people who define TI. You have to define it. So this is what I mean. This is why deduction is better for Enneagram, because you're not having to define the thing that people are obsessed by. You just have to. And then another way of checking Enneagram is to try and think of all the motivations you can and see if Enneagram has missed any of them. Now, what I might argue is that there is a lot of overlap between Enneagram 9 and Enneagram 2 at the core, because the 2 wants love and the 9 wants connection. But if we're really going right down to it, there's a lot of overlap between love and connection. Okay, so the Enneagram 9 is a fear of loss and separation. Well, if you're fearing losing a relationship and a partner, that's like, there's a lot of crossover between the 2 and the 9. So, yeah, people need to look into that because of the distinct difference there. Well, there's connection in love. So, yeah. So, what is going on there? Fear of loss, and then the love is fear of not being loved. But if not being loved, you don't have the connection. So, yeah. Then there's a lot of overlap there. One could argue that connection is a particular aspect of love. But yeah, one needs to. I'm not so sure that those are distinct motivations, because remember, the Enneagram people are working off a symbol. Oh, we have 9. We need to think of a 9th. Right. So here we go. Core motivations. Uses these motives deductively to explain behaviors and fixations. Avoids conflating external traits influenced by temperament and culture. So you can think, okay, if someone wants security, what then would someone do? If someone wants success, what would then someone do? You can deduct from it. And then, especially if you talk about the fixation, rather than someone being, say, an Enneagram 6, but someone with that fixation, then you are saying, well, this fixation leads to this, rather than saying that someone is it. And it's actually healthier to view it that way, because somebody should not define him or herself by a fixation. Right. Ian-Kersey individuation patterns. Focuses on observable patterns derived from Kersey temperaments, interaction styles, roles. Also, not just observable, unless people are lip readers, you can hear words who talk. So observable is going to be visual. I am pedantic. Uses these patterns descriptively to refine definitions of cognitive functions. Now, this makes Kersey look too behaviorist. But remember, half of Kersey is all the motivation trust, all the motivation stuff, all the trust, yearn, seek, prize, and all of that. Yeah, all the core self-image. There's loads of motivation stuff in Kersey that people ignore because not with the books. There are empiricals in terms of actions and word usage. So, for example, for rationals, factorial, analytic, and deductive, especially INTP, analytic, and the sequence deductive, and getting all the factors in there. And look at this, getting the factors together and integrating it. So, yeah. Yeah, limitations for empirical evidence, descriptively. Yeah, to refine the definitions of the cognitive function, because it's sort of like doing a box. These are what we notice empirically from these other systems, and we can say that the definition of the function is within this box. So we already do the box by saying something like this. Well, it's if we're describing FE, where we're saying, right, okay, it's extroverted and it's feeling. So we have a box to sort of put it in. And then we can have another part of the box by saying, well, these people are with FJ preferences, and when we talk to them, we find out the Kersey temperament. So these SFJs with FE with SI, oh, they're helping people on the physical level. And then we look at the NFJs, oh, they're helping people psychologically. And so we can like, okay, there's a theme of helping people there. Let's put that in the description of FE. There's an other focus in there. There's an attentiveness towards other people's affect display and introjecting emotions that we've seen from this whole type level. Let's put that in the description. So we're making very little up. We're being scientific. And this is not about being unique with like new definitions and that lot. No, it's just about adding nuance to the conventional understandings of the function in Western type, and to say Western type got it right. Right. And they got it right because of Kersey. Right. The Kersey legacy. Addressing limitations from empirical evidence. Right. Conclusion. Your work bridges two powerful frameworks, Jungian cognitive functions and Kersey temperaments, into a cohesive system you call the Jungian Kersey individuation patterns. By combining using insights into introverted and extroverted cognition, outward, and so empirical, inward and so subjective. It's subjective because it's inward. It's empirical because it's outward. With the Kersey's empirically grounded temperaments and roles, you provide a refined understanding of cognitive functions that is both descriptive and practical. At the same time, your deductive approach to the Enneagram highlights its unique focus on universal human motivations rather than observable traits. Together, these methodologies reflect your expertise as a typologist who integrates multiple systems into a unified framework for understanding personality. Right, so let's talk about artisans, an example of the Trust Yearn Seek Prize. Because I want to like prove to you that Kersey has stuff about motivation. So, trust impulse. Now, if you are clued into the moment, if you are reading the room, then any impulse you have should be appropriate to the situation. Because you are in the current context. Now, ironically, sometimes your ENFPs can be inappropriate because they're not as in the moment. Even though they have the strong feeling, ENFPs can be inappropriate if they're not clued into the moment. Right, so your descriptive. That said, but Ben, ESTPs are inappropriate. That's because they don't care. But if they're in an FE mode, they can sort of pick it up and read the room. Right. But tactically, they can take appropriate actions, say in sport or warfare. Your descriptive approach is cognitive functions, which is grounded in the Kersey temperament, interaction, and so on. Let me reframe. Oh, now this is a different approach. This is a different one. don't believe I got to the end yet. Yeah, so this was a prior answer, but it has some extra stuff in. I understand the distinction making between deductive approach to Enneagram and a descriptive protocol. The function was grounded in coded temperament model, interaction style, social intent. Let me reframe my response to better reflect your methodology and highlight the contrast between these two systems. Deductive approach to Enneagram. Right, here we go. So you see there's a little bit more here. Let's see how I go. Let's see how much left there is. Ooh. Not that much. See how we go. Right. As you outlined, the Enneagram is best understood through a deductive approach because it is rooted in universal, empirically observable human motivations. These motivations are not theoretical. They are grounded in what people universally recognize as real drivers of behavior, such as we don't have to define love, success, security, fun the way we do with functions. Right. Or away from boredom, and so on. So if the Enneagram 9 fixation is afraid of loss and separation, so the Enneagram 9 wants connection. So the 9 wants connection and the 2 wants love. But love is a form of connection. Yeah. I think I'm trying hard to get a 9th fixation. Because the other ones don't overlap that much. And plus, the 2 and the 9 get put in different centers. The Enneagram's strength lies in its ability to start with these core motivations and fears, which are universally relatable and empirically validated through introspection. But you get people who just like have weird stuff. So, for example, Naranjo. Oh, because there's a counterphobic 6, it then thinks, oh, every other type, there must be a counter type for every other Enneagram. Why? Why must there be a counter type? Just because there's a counter type for the 6, why must there be a counter type for all the other Enneagrams? Why? Because you want symmetricality? The Enneagram's strength lies in its ability to start with these core motivations and fears, which are universally relatable and empirically validated through introspection. By focusing on these core sort of empirically, but I mean, it's there for the individual person. By focusing, if you ask people, put them on an insincerity detector, because that's what it really is. Because if you ask someone who's deluded, that needle won't budge. All right. By focusing on these core drivers rather than external traits, the Enneagram avoids conflating behaviors influenced by external factors such as culture, upbringing, and temperament. So you keep it separate from you get to accept there are some motivations within the cozy temperaments, and so that side of I use the Linda Barrows terms essential motivator pattern. We can say the essential motivator pattern is the motivational half of the cozy temperament. Right, start with the core motivation. Type V for right, success or security. Right. Deduce how this motivation manifests in behavior. Avoid confusion caused by overlapping traits of external, and even the word security, it's more away from fear sometimes. Right, for example, avoid confusion caused by overlapping. Here we go. For type 6 with a guardian temperament might express his or her fixation on security through loyalty or tradition. A type 6 with an artisan temperament might express it through quick. So I did a series of this with Jonathan. We did 3 videos on how the Enneagram type 6 fixation can vary, or the type 6 fixated person can vary depending on the temperament of the person who has the fixation. Artisan, guardian, idealist, rational, A gear. Type 6 with an artisan temperament might express it through quick adaptability in dangerous situations. In both cases, the core motivation remains the same, but the behavior differs. And also, the Enneagram 6 fixated artisan is much more likely to be counterphobic. Thus, the Enneagram works best when approached deductively because it is grounded. Now, you can also get counterphobic guardians, such as Vladimir Putin, Plus, the Enneagram works best when he is a counterphobic 6 ISTJ contender guardian. Thus, the Enneagram works best when approached deductively because it is grounded in universal psychological truths that transcend external personality frameworks. Descriptive opposed to cognitive functions. In contrast, your approach to describing cognitive functions is descripted and grounded in observable patterns from the Kersey temperament model, interaction styles, and Kersey framework of social intelligent roles, and also from taking Jung's empirical and subjective. And like I said, you can deduce all of the functions except for SE and SI. So you can go subjective and thinking, and then look at the TPs and go, they're always thinking for themselves. Subjective and feeling, empirical and feeling, and you can deduce and then check it against the Kersey types and go, okay, that validates Jung's idea of empirical versus subjective. It's just only a part of it when it comes to the instinct, because SE is more than just sensory acuity. It's also wanting the impulse. It's also going towards the excitement. It's also these other behaviors and a desire for freedom. And you, from subjective sensing, you don't get to security seeking. Right. But the subjective sensing of guardians comes through in their rich sensory imagination, so they love a lot of description in novels. So they love all that description of clothing in the Song of Ice and Fire novels. Right. Okay. This method allows for a more precise and empirically grounded understanding of how cognitive functions manifest across different types. Jacobs. Kersey frameworks are more real, not necessarily Kersey's. Why is Kersey's framework is real? Kersey's system is rooted in observable patterns of human behavior, such as essential motivator patterns. So, are someone's motivations real? Well, if you ask each person, I think that person would say, yes, my motivations are real. When you have someone who's clearly motivated, is that real? Well, if it has real effects and people act on it, and for a certain thing is, I did that because, well, to the person it's real. And it's not always as clear cut. There can be sort of multifaceted reasons. You know, why did you do it? Oh, just because. Oh, so you're more like an artisan than just like doing it for kicks. Okay. What each temperament trusts, seeks, prizes, and values. Artisans for freedom, belonging for guardians, authenticity, diet, mastery for action. Let's see if I can do this off the top of my head. Let's see if I can close my eyes and I can remember all of these. Trust, yearn, seek, prize. So artisans, trust impulse, seek stimulation, especially sensory stimulation. Prize, yeah, they do prize generosity. And they yearn for impact. I saw a YouTuber talking about the Metallica's Sandman song, and he was talking about, oh wow, they're making such an impact with that 1.6 million crowd in '91, and you could sort of see this guy could be an artisan. It's like, I want that impact. Trust, yearn, seek, prize, guardians, trust, authority. It's like, who is the authority? Because they think that they trust the system that, oh, this person's accredited, therefore this person is an authority. So it's almost like the title, the credentials of the person, rather than what the person is saying first. Now they then go on later on and say, oh, this person's not making sense. But generally it's authority. Trust, yearn to belong. Even the STJs, even the FE polar ISTJ yearns to belong. Might yearn to be belong with a bunch of other concrete nerds in the quiz night club, but you know, or the anoraks or chain spotters. But yeah, there are a lot of ISTJs. Trust, yearn, and they seek security, and they prize gratitude, especially the SFJs. Yeah. that might actually go more towards SFJs. Trust, yearn, seek, prize. Idealists. Trust intuition. Yearn for romance. Seek identity, and prize recognition. Pretty Enneagram 4 that they all prize recognition for who they think they are. Right. And again, you put them on an insincerity detector, they're super sincere. Like if you put Enneagram 4 fixated person, are you exceptional? Oh yes, I'm exceptional. Needle didn't budge. Rationals. Trust, yearn, seek, prize. Trust, reason. So this is why it can be tricky trying to see INTJ as an irrational type, because they're going to be very much reason based. Only if you get to know them quite a lot, and sometimes they'll talk about that weird NI stuff that's going on in their mind. Right. Trust, reason. Trust, yearn. Now, this is more for the more leans, but yearn for achievement. Yeah. Trust, yearn, seek knowledge, and actually prize deference. And actually deference to the theory. Yeah, or the product. Yeah. Trust, yearn, seek, prize. Right then. And then there's the values. Then there's the self-image. Self-image for artisans. The 3 A's. Artistry, audacity, adaptability. Artistry as in, and Kersey defined it as any action, any activity where the next action is a free variable. Because I don't want to be like going through the procedure. Whereas the Guardian wants, especially ISTJ, wants security in going through the procedure. Now, advanced Guardians have a whole load of procedures and are able to read a situation and pick the procedure that's relevant to the circumstance. So they're using SI with NE, the perception of similarities, the perception to a past experience which was similar. Right. Artistry, audacity, adaptability. What about Gardens? Guardians. BDR. Beneficent. No. No. Is it beneficent? Yes, beneficent. Actively kind. Beneficent, dependable, respectable, or responsible. I can't remember. I have the shit over there, but I'm trying to do this off my head. Idealists. Self-image words. Abe. Authentic. Benevolent. Which is not. It's more. Oh, goodwill to all humankind. It's not actively helping people. More concrete for the Guardians. Abe. Empathic. They were banging on about empathy. Well, at least the Enneagram 4 ones are. Hit the virtue signaling. Yeah. Empathy. What are the words for air? It's in air for the rationals. Autonomous. So very much in thinking for themselves. I know I said that about TI, but it's a temperament first. Air, ingenuity, especially for the NTPs, value the ingenuity. And then resolute. Now, it is true that once a rational puts his or her mind to it, they can get the project done. Right then. Might not necessarily be successful, well, with housemates, but I hope it will be. I'm working towards it. But the point is that the resolution is there, being resolute. Right. Interaction styles, directive informing. How much more do we have? Ooh, okay, here we go. Let's see, let's go. I'm going to go with one. Socially intelligent roles, tactical manipulation, logistical. And went through this before. These frameworks have been publicly grounded. Patterns, word usage, communication, problem solving strategies. Yeah, and there's also that's utilitarian. That's cooperative. That's cooperative, and that's utilitarian. Utilitarian, as in doing what works rather than doing what is right. And again, cooperative for idealists is a little bit different. because sometimes they can have a situation where they do, like in terms of ethics, they can sort of go on their own. But let's just say that a lot of idealists end up going towards an idealized vision of collectivism. So in that sense, they have that cooperative vision. There are some idealist libertarians, but mainly libertarians. There's a lot of NTs and TPs amongst libertarians. A lot of artisans too. Your method involves using Kurz's empirically grounded patterns as a foundation for describing Jungian cognitive. All right, okay, FJs. By examining all FJs as NFJs. NFJs as directive idealists and SFJs as informing guardians. The directive, because they're directing people, mentoring people, guiding people. You have the sense of direction. We can abstract a description of FE based on their shared tendencies. SFJs use FE to help people on a physical, practical level, logistical, safekeeping. NFJs use FE to help people on a psychological, emotional level, diplomatic harmony. So, like I said, there's a commonality there. We can be sure of this, more sure of this. This descriptive approach ensures FE is defined based on real-world patterns rather than abstract theorizing. Although we're validating the theory. Describing TI through SDPs and NTPs. By examining how SDPs, directive artisans, and NTPs inform rationals. The NTPs are informing because of the NE. They don't really have a sense of direction at times. Use TI, we can see distinct patterns. SDPs use TI within a tactical manipulation framework and solving immediate problems with precision and adaptability. It's in the moment. NTPs use TI within a strategic construction framework, developing logical systems and theories over time. This allows us to describe TI in a way that accounts for its variability whilst remaining consistent with observable patterns. Subjective thinker. And subjectivity is coloured by the temperament. Right, why this approach? Grounded in real patterns. Kurz's temperaments and interaction styles are based on empirical observations of communication styles. Right, so abstract versus concrete. Intuitive people intuition is related to the abstract. Sensory instincting is related to the concrete. Observations of communication style, and also within that, artisans go towards sensory qualities and guardians tend to go towards quantities because it goes more towards logistics. Account for variability. By examining how each function manifests across different temperaments and roles, you avoid overly narrow or biased definitions. Socionics. Model A. Integrates multiple frameworks. This approach bridges cognitive functions with Kurz's system, providing a holistic understanding. Again, I'm not the first person to do this. Linda Bones was likely the first, because she was taught by Kersey and then she integrated it with, and then she wrote an article saying that Kersey got upset with her. But, she went her own way. Good INTP, thinking for herself. The key differences between your approaches in these systems lies in their foundational principles. Enneagram, deductive from core motivations. Enneagram starts, how many have I got left now? Have left. Enneagram starts with universal human motivations, love, success, that are empirically real and universally recognized. From these motivations, we deduce behaviors and fixations. I know it's repeating itself, but there's little differences that were not in the second version. This ensures clarity and consistency because the motivations are rooted in fundamental human psychology. Yes. Cognitive function, descriptive from Kersey patterns. Are described based on observable patterns and information styles. Well, this is a bit repetitive. By examining how each type user function within the temperament framework, we can abstract a definition that accounts for variability while remaining consistent with real-world observations. Right. This descriptive approach avoids theoretical bias by grounding definitions in empirical data. Common themes in your methodology. Despite the differences, both approaches share common principles that reflect your overarching philosophy as a typologist. Empirical grounding. Both methods prioritize real-world observations over abstract theorizing. Doesn't make me a concrete type. It makes me Enneagram 6 and scientific. I did a degree for 3 years of biology, and it was only biology. I have to keep saying this because Americans don't do proper degrees. They have a major. Enneagram motivations are validated through introspection and universal agreement. I lost some subscribers because I said that. Oops. Enneagram motivations are validated through introspection and universal agreement. Well, mostly. I mean, I've just come out and I said that Enneagram 9 might not be distinct from Enneagram 2, and that the Enneagram 9 might be because of who's carrying the fixation. Cognitive functions are described through patterns observed in Kurz's system. Right. Or they correlate to. It's the combinations. Right at the end. Clarity through context. Both approaches emphasize context-dependent variability while maintaining internal consistency. Enneagram behaviors vary by temperament, but share common fixations. Yeah. Cognitive function usage varies by role, but shares common underlying processes. Avoiding misinterpretation. Both methods aim to prevent confusion caused by surface-level descriptions or theoretical bias. So what we're going to do is I'm going to end that. Yes. And then I'm going to show you, because this wasn't in the folder. Right. Okay, so what am I looking for here? So I'm looking for some Kersey stuff. Okay, incompatible. Details. I could probably show that Nardi one as well. Yeah, I'll show that. Oh, beggar it. Right. Bear with me. Oh, if I show one first, then I'll look for the other one. So, Nardi. Right. 8 keys to self-leadership. Scans. Instinct. Aha. Here we go. Oh, that didn't open up correctly. Opened up within. Open a new tab. No. Open with I have known. Right. So, share screen. No. Bingo. So, I should have shown this before. I better add it. Right. So, yeah. I'm just gonna. So, I'll remove myself. I'll put myself in the